Welcome back to the channel. So the question comes, why doesn't your blood sugar crash overnight? The answer lies in a remarkable process called as glycogenolysis. In our first video, we explored glycogen structure and learned why it is the body's ideal glucose storage molecule. In the second video, we saw how excess glucose is converted into glycogen through glycogenesis. But storing glucose is only half the story. What happens when you are fasting or sleeping or suddenly need energy during exercise? That's when glycogenolysis comes into action. In this video, we will follow the complete pathway of the glycogen breakdown in a very easy manner. So let's begin. Glycogen phosphorylase is the enzyme that starts the glycogen breakdown. During glycogenolysis, this enzyme attacks the glycogen molecule from its non-reducing ends and sequentially cleaves the alpha-1,4 glycosidic bonds using inorganic phosphate by a process known as phosphorylases. An important point for exams is that glycogen phosphorylase requires pyridoxal phosphate, the active form of vitamin B6, as an essential cofactor. Instead of releasing free glucose, it produces glucose 1-phosphate, which is advantageous because the cell saves an ATP molecule that would otherwise be needed for phosphorylation. We will discuss about this later. However, the enzyme glycogen phosphorylase has a limitation. It can act only on the straight chains and cannot break the alpha-1,6 branch points. As it approaches a branch, it stops about 3 to 4 glucose residues away, leaving behind a highly branched structure called as limit dextrin. At this stage, the glycogen phosphorylase can go no further and the process becomes dependent on the debranching enzyme complex, which removes the branches and exposes more alpha-1,4 linkages for continued degradation. So, while glycogen phosphorylase initiates the glycogen breakdown and generates most of the glucose 1-phosphate, complete glycogen degradation requires a teamwork with the debranching enzymes. So now glycogen phosphorylase has done all it can do and has stopped at the level of limit dextrin, unable to cross the alpha-1,6 branch point. This is where the glycogen debranching enzyme, which is a bifunctional enzyme, steps in to continue the process. It has two activities. First comes its transferase activity. It is often called as a relocator. It removes a block of 3 glucose residues from the short branch and transfers them to a nearby linear chain through alpha-1,4 linkage. This effectively extends the straight chain and exposes the branch point. However, one glucose unit still remains attached through the stubborn alpha-1,6 bond. Now, the enzyme switches to its second function, that is alpha-1,6 glucosidase activity, the unleasher. This activity hydrolyzes the alpha-1,6 bond and releases a molecule of free glucose and not as glucose 1-phosphate. With the branch removed, the steric hindrance disappears and the glycogen molecule becomes linear once again. And again, the glycogen phosphorylase can resume its sequential cleavage of alpha-1,4 bonds. At this stage, the glycogen has been successfully broken down. Most of the glucose units have been released as glucose 1-phosphate, while small amount appears as free glucose from the branch points. But what happens to all this glucose 1-phosphate? It cannot simply enter the glycolysis in its current form. First, it must be converted into glucose 6-phosphate, a crucial reaction catalyzed by the enzyme phosphoglucomutase, which acts as a metabolic bridge between the glycogen breakdown and the energy production. The phosphoglucomutase shifts the phosphate group from carbon 1 to carbon 6 position, converting glucose 1-phosphate into glucose 6-phosphate through an intramolecular phosphate transfer. So the reaction is catalyzed by phosphoglucomutase. The fate of the glucose 6-phosphate depends on the tissue in which it is found. It is converted into free glucose if it is in the liver, and which can enter into the circulation or get trapped in the muscle, undergoing glycolysis for muscle contraction energy production. Now let's understand what happens inside the liver and muscle in the next picture. This image highlights one of the most important differences between liver and the muscle glycogen metabolism. Both tissues can break down the glycogen to produce glucose 6 phosphate, but what happens next depends entirely on the presence or absence of a single enzyme, that is glucose 6 phosphatase. In the liver, this enzyme is present. It removes the phosphate group from the glucose 6 phosphate and generates free glucose. Because free glucose can cross the cell membrane, it is released into the bloodstream, helping in maintaining the glucose levels during fasting and supplying vital tissues such as brain and red blood cells. This is why the liver is often called the body's systemic glucose provider. In contrast, skeletal muscle lacks glucose 6 phosphatase. So, the glucose 6 phosphate cannot be converted into free glucose. Instead, it remains trapped within the muscle cell and is funneled directly into glycolysis, producing ATP needed for muscle contraction. As a result, the muscle glycogen serves only the energy needs of that particular muscle and cannot contribute directly to the blood glucose maintenance. Coming to the energetics of the glycogen metabolism. During glycogenesis, the body spends energy to store the glucose safely as glycogen. First, glucose is phosphorylated using 1 ATP, and then glucose 1 phosphate is activated to UDP glucose using 1 UTP, meaning that incorporating a single glucose molecule into glycogen effectively causes two high energy phosphate bonds. Now, coming to glycogenolysis. During glycogenolysis, that investment pays off. The glycogen phosphorylase releases the glucose units as glucose 1 phosphate, which are then converted into glucose 6 phosphate without consuming an ATP. Why is this advantageous? This is a major advantage because it bypasses the hexokinase reaction, the step that normally costs one ATP molecule when the free glucose enters the glycolysis. As a result, the glycolysis that starts from free blood glucose yields a net gain of 2 ATP, whereas the glycolysis that starts from glycogen derived glucose, it yields 3 ATP. That extra ATP may seem small, but during intense muscle activity, it provides a significant energetic advantage. So, the key takeaway is glycogenesis requires an energy investment to build the glycogen stores, but glycogenolysis, it returns that investment with a bonus by supplying glucose in a pre-phosphorylated form, making glycogen an exceptionally efficient fuel reserve, especially for contracting skeletal muscles. If you have understood the video, do like the video and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one, which happens to be the final part, that is the part 4 of the glycogen metabolism regulation. So see you in the next one.